Not so very long ago, I remember walking through the ground floor of a Bay Hotel. Oh, it was an amazing night. My husband George and I, we were seated in this quiet area of this wonderful veranda restaurant. Oh, I felt so relaxed and far away from it all. And I remember saying, this is the most serene hotel I've ever been to. All of a sudden, we heard the most horrific screams coming from the front of the hotel. And then we saw swarms of people, just droves of them coming at us right where we were. Oh, some of them had blood on them. Others had no shoes. All of them were panic-stricken with fear, shock, and disbelief. Not knowing what to make of it all, I grabbed my purse and my jacket, and we just ran. And more of them came, and we just ran with them as hard as we could. Oh, after a while, we came to these tall, billowing weeds, and we just stopped. Oh, I couldn't go any further. I was petrified, and they kept running, but I just felt deep inside I had to grab hold of myself and think my own thoughts. How did we get here? I'm a grief counselor. When horrible things happen out in the world, like airline crashes and suicides, people call and I support them when they're caught in the fray or the crossfire. I wasn't used to being on this side of tragedy, or was I? People often say to me, how do you do this? Why do you do it? I can tell you, I was groomed for this from the very beginning. I have a younger brother, Howie. He was born with a rare disorder, early onset schizophrenia. Everyone knew something was the matter except my mother. Our household was a scary one. Every day there was a blow-up involving Howie, and somehow I would be the brunt of it. I also learned early on, along with Howie's blow-ups, my father's career as county agent of agriculture and professor of ag economics would take center stage of our home life. In fact, he had his own radio show, The Green Thumb. In fact, dear old Dad, he was one way out in public and another way at home. When I grew older, I said, my father must have 36 personalities, and I like 4 of them. I just lost count. But years later, I came home for a special event for dear old Dad. And this event was one of those dinners held in a large banquet hall. Oh, everyone came, extended family, all his political cronies, even Howie in a suit and tie at 21 years old, the best he ever looked, and he had a nice girlfriend and a job. It was quite a night. There my father was, up at the podium, receiving his Man of the People award. However, the second he came down, everyone but the family got up politicking, networking, and slapping each other on the back. All of a sudden, my little brother Howie pulls away from the family table, stands up on his chair high above the crowd, and begins waving his arms as if he's orchestrating everyone to directing them to frenetically shake hands and make promises they never intended to keep. And at a high crescendo moment, Howie, my little brother, yells out at the top of his lungs, F you! Oh yeah. Everyone stopped, frozen, right where they stood. Nobody moved. All of a sudden, when they started to look up and saw it was only Howie, as they all seemed to know him, they all went back to business as usual, including dear old Dad, as if nothing had happened. Well, upon recuperating from that particular weekend, I started to go into, oh my gosh, this family is really something else. I don't know how I got through. And then I started to feel sorry for myself. But a bolt from heaven came down and said, wait a second, Barbara. Why should I abhor myself and the family I came from when they gave me a lot of the skills I would need to get through life and in business? Well, I had to keep my wits about me at every moment and be ready for anything at any time. I had to reach deep inside myself and know what I was listening to, was it really true or not? I learned to think for myself. I learned to act for myself. And I also learned not to just follow blindly along with the crowd. And all of this has brought me to be a grief counselor, where I've learned to be with people for over 1,000 cases and support them in all kinds of crazy things out in the world. And I can tell you, when it comes to business, when you are engaged in what you are doing, and there's nothing else you'd rather do, you know you are serving from your soul. Now let's go back to that night at the hotel. It was October 1st, 2017, a night I will never forget. My husband George were relaxing at the Mandalay Bay Resort. We were told that Route 91 Harvest Music Festival right across the street had a few more tickets. We were about to go, but at the last minute, we went to the show The Medalists downtown. When the taxi driver got us back that night at 9:55 p.m., right under the windows of the Mandalay Bay, overlooking the concert, we could hear the music. Oh, it sounded like a lot of fun. We went back to the quiet restaurant, The Veranda, for a late-night dinner. Now let's go back to those weeds. Here we were, crouched down for what seemed like an hour and a half. I don't know, it could have been years. The helicopters were over our heads the whole time. It was exhausting. We couldn't hear ourselves think. But they moved away. The crowds of running people seemed to thin out. And we crept over the weeds and ran head on to this woman named Carolyn. She worked at the hotel. When her eyes met ours, we formed the most amazing godsend of a little survival team. And I started to look around. The night was getting late, and the air was getting really cold. And I peered into the eyes of some of those who had actually been at that concert. Oh, their terror was far greater than ours. And I thought, would I have been as brave as they seemed to be? Because what we were going through was sheer, unadulterated, everything you could think of. I couldn't imagine what they were doing. Just then, it was like a flash came through me. When you're going to a large event, carry a zippered bag. Make sure your phone is fully charged. Have money and credit cards, and carry that jacket, even if you don't want it, and even if you think you'll never need it. And someone has to say it. Leave those beautiful high heels at home and wear the cute little comfy shoes. You just never know. Just then, we looked to the right, and we saw this overwrought bus driver trying to escape town. It was mayhem. We banged on his door, and he took us over to the airport to get us a taxi. Carolyn had invited us to go stay at her home for the evening. We couldn't believe it. It's 2:30 in the morning. Her husband came out of the house. He had wide open arms and said, "Welcome home, friends." Oh, I nearly collapsed with joy, never mind exhaustion. His voice had the kindest and most soothing tone we heard all night and maybe all my life. And I can tell you, kindness is the most important piece of support for people stuck in terror and panic. When you are kind in business, even when people drive you crazy over the phone, people will want to associate with you forever. And as a counselor, I am constantly in awe at how when you're kind, people will have hope that they can get through some of the most unbelievable situations that you wonder, how do they do it? And they say you've helped them by being kind. The next day, Carolyn's husband took us back to the hotel. And here we were on the way back there. I'm already getting calls to be a grief counselor for this situation. I let him know, look, I wasn't at the concert, but I'm still pulling my head together. I'll let you know. as we went back to the hotel at the 34th floor for the very first time since the shooting. We opened up the shades and looked down 2 stories and saw the blown out windows. Then we turned to the right and saw the concert arena, all of it. When I saw the backpacks strewn about and some of them laid out in rows, something in my crying heart just said, there's no way I'm not coming back to serve everyone and anyone I could see. And that night I flew home to California to get some things and drove back the next day to serve Vegas strong in any way my soul was asked. And I can tell you, I dug deep in my heart to say what I was meant to say, and to remember kindness and compassion are always paramount. And you can bet I was wearing my most comfortable closed-toed shoes.